Ever notice how some of the smartest, most successful men you know completely fall apart when it comes to women? The guy who built a successful business can't get a second date. The engineer who solves complex problems daily can't figure out why she stopped texting back. The doctor who saves lives somehow kills attraction without even realizing it. Today, I'm breaking down the 9 most common mistakes that smart men make with women. These aren't the obvious mistakes everyone talks about. These are the specific patterns that high intelligence men fall into precisely because they're intelligent. And if you recognize yourself in these mistakes, don't worry. Awareness is the first step to fixing them. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why your intelligence might be working against you and what to do about it. Let's dive into the mistakes that are costing you attraction. Mistake 1, overanalyzing everything. The first mistake smart men make is treating attraction like a problem to be solved through analysis rather than an experience to be felt. You're used to your intelligence solving problems in other areas of life, so you naturally try to apply that same analytical approach to dating and women. Here's how this shows up. You're on a date, and instead of being present and enjoying the interaction, part of your brain is constantly analyzing. Did that joke land? Should I have said something different? What does it mean that she touched her hair? Is she interested or just being polite? You're so busy analyzing the interaction that you're not actually experiencing it. Women can sense when you're in your head rather than present with them. That analytical energy creates distance and makes the interaction feel calculated rather than spontaneous. Attraction thrives on presence and spontaneity, not careful analysis and strategic planning. Smart men often approach dating like they're preparing for an exam. They research techniques, study body language, analyze past interactions to identify what went wrong. But all this analysis creates paralysis. You become so focused on doing everything right that you stop being authentic and spontaneous. The solution isn't to stop using your intelligence entirely, it's to recognize when analysis is helpful versus when it's harmful. Analysis is useful for understanding general principles of attraction and learning from past patterns. But during actual interactions, you need to turn off the analytical brain and be present. Think of it like dancing. Studying dance theory is helpful, but when you're actually dancing, you need to stop thinking and just move. Mistake 2, trying to logic your way to attraction. The second mistake is believing that attraction is logical and can be created through logical arguments or demonstrations of value. Smart men are used to winning arguments, proving their points, and convincing people through reason. So they unconsciously try to apply this same approach to creating attraction. This manifests in several ways. You try to convince her why she should like you by listing your accomplishments, explaining your qualities, or logically demonstrating your value. You respond to her emotions with logic, trying to solve her problems or explain why she shouldn't feel a certain way. You debate with her to prove you're smart, not realizing that winning arguments doesn't create attraction. Here's the fundamental truth. Attraction is emotional, not logical. Women don't decide to be attracted to you based on a logical assessment of your qualities. Attraction happens at a feeling level that bypasses logic entirely. You can't logic someone into being attracted to you any more than you can logic yourself out of being attracted to someone. In fact, trying to use logic to create attraction often has the opposite effect. When you're explaining why she should like you, you're essentially arguing from a position of lower value. High V-value men don't need to convince anyone of their worth. It's self-evident. When you respond to emotions with logic, you demonstrate a lack of emotional intelligence, which is deeply unattractive. The solution is understanding that creating attraction requires emotional engagement, not logical persuasion. Focus on creating experiences that feel good rather than arguments that make sense. Learn to engage with emotions rather than dismissing them with logic. And most importantly, stop trying to convince anyone of your value. Just be valuable and let that speak for itself. Mistake 3, seeking intellectual validation. The third mistake smart men make is prioritizing intellectual connection over emotional and physical connection. You're used to being valued for your intelligence, so you unconsciously seek validation of your intellect in romantic interactions rather than building actual attraction. This shows up as constantly steering conversations toward intellectual topics, showing off your knowledge, or testing her intelligence to see if she's smart enough for you. You feel most comfortable discussing ideas, theories, or complex topics because that's where your confidence lies. But while intellectual conversation can be enjoyable, it doesn't create romantic or sexual attraction. Smart men often make the mistake of thinking that demonstrating intelligence will make them more attractive. So they drop references to books they've read, explain complex concepts, or engage in intellectual one-upmanship. But women don't get turned on by your understanding of quantum physics or your ability to discuss philosophy. What's worse, this focus on intellectual validation often comes across as either showing off or testing her, neither of which creates positive feelings. When you're constantly displaying your intelligence or evaluating hers, the interaction becomes more like a job interview than a date. The solution is recognizing that while shared intellectual interests can enhance a relationship, they don't create initial attraction. Initial attraction is built through emotional connection, physical chemistry, playful banter, and creating feelings of excitement and intrigue. Save the deep intellectual conversations for after you've established attraction, not as a tool for creating it. Mistake 4, paralysis by perfectionism. The fourth mistake is perfectionism preventing action. Smart men are used to excellence and often have high standards for their own performance. This perfectionism, which serves you well in career and intellectual pursuits, becomes a massive liability in dating. Here's how it manifests. You don't approach women unless you have the perfect opening line. You don't ask her out unless you've planned the perfect date. You don't make a move unless the moment seems perfect. You replay conversations in your head, beating yourself up over every imperfect moment. This perfectionism creates massive approach anxiety and prevents you from gaining the experience you actually need to improve. You're waiting until you're ready or until everything is perfect, but that moment never comes. Meanwhile, less intelligent but more action-oriented men are out there gaining experience, making mistakes, learning, and improving. Smart men often study dating advice extensively, but never actually implement it because they're afraid of making mistakes. They consume endless content, theorize about what should work, but avoid the messy reality of actual practice where things go wrong and you learn through failure. The solution is embracing imperfection and prioritizing action over analysis. Understand that you're going to make mistakes, say the wrong things, and have awkward moments. That's not failure. That's the learning process. Every successful person in any field made countless mistakes on the path to mastery. Dating is no different, except that good enough is actually better than perfect, because good enough involves taking action, while perfect involves endless preparation that never leads to results. Set a rule. Take action within 5 seconds of having an impulse before your perfectionist mind can talk you out of it. Mistake 5, being too available and accommodating. The fifth mistake smart men make is being overly logical about availability and accommodation. You think she suggested Tuesday for a date, and I'm free Tuesday, so obviously I should say yes. The logic is sound, but the psychology is wrong. Smart men often optimize for efficiency and logic in their schedules and decisions. If you're free and she wants to meet, it makes logical sense to say yes. If she needs something and you can provide it, logic says you should help. But dating isn't about logical optimization. It's about managing perception and maintaining attraction. When you're always available, always accommodating, always willing to adjust your schedule or plans to fit hers, you communicate something problematic. You don't have much else going on in your life. You're not in demand. You're not valuable enough that your time and attention are scarce resources. This is especially common with smart men who have introverted tendencies or who are focused on their work. Your social calendar might not be full because you prefer depth over breadth in friendships or because you're focused on important projects, but being immediately available makes you appear less valuable regardless of the actual reasons. The solution isn't playing games or being dishonest. It's genuinely building a full life that makes your time and attention actually scarce and valuable. Develop friendships, pursue hobbies, create routines and commitments that occupy your time. When you have a genuinely full life, being selective about availability becomes natural rather than strategic. Mistake 6, failing to escalate physically. The sixth mistake is intellectualizing physical attraction instead of acting on it. Smart men often get stuck in their heads about physical escalation, overthinking every move and waiting for clear signals before making any physical advances. Here's the pattern. You're having a great conversation. There's obvious chemistry, but you don't make any physical moves because you're analyzing whether the signals are clear enough. You're worried about being inappropriate or making her uncomfortable, so you err on the side of caution. The date ends with an awkward hug and she loses attraction because you didn't demonstrate confidence and intent. Smart men often treat consent and physical escalation as binary. Either you have explicit verbal permission or you do nothing. But physical escalation in dating contexts actually works through gradual progression and reading nonverbal responses. You start with light, appropriate touches and calibrate based on her response, not by waiting for her to explicitly tell you to touch her. The irony is that by being overly cautious and failing to escalate, you're actually creating discomfort rather than avoiding it. Women want men who are confident enough to show romantic and physical interest. When you fail to escalate, she doesn't feel desired, and she questions whether you're actually interested or just want friendship. The solution is understanding that appropriate physical escalation is part of demonstrating romantic intent. Start with light, socially acceptable touches. Touching her arm during conversation, guiding her by the small of her back through a door, sitting close enough that your legs occasionally touch. Pay attention to her response. If she leans in, reciprocates, or maintains the contact, that's a green light to continue escalating gradually. Stop waiting for absolute certainty or explicit permission before every move. That's not how physical attraction works in romantic contexts. Build your confidence through gradual escalation and calibration rather than overthinking every touch or waiting for obvious signals that might never come. Mistake 7. Explaining instead of creating mystery. The seventh mistake smart men make is over-explaining everything, leaving no mystery or intrigue. You're used to clarity and thoroughness in communication, so you naturally provide detailed explanations about your thoughts, feelings, motivations, and history, but attraction thrives on some level of mystery and discovery. This manifests in several ways. She asks, "What you do for work?" And instead of giving a brief, intriguing answer, you provide your entire career, history, and detailed explanation of your job. She asks about your weekend, and you give a minute-by-minute account instead of highlighting interesting moments. You immediately share your feelings, thoughts, and intentions rather than letting her wonder and be curious about you. Smart men often value transparency and clear communication, which are indeed important in relationships. But in early interactions, too much information actually diminishes attraction. Part of what keeps someone interested is curiosity about who you are and what you're about. When you explain everything in detail, you remove that curiosity and intrigue. Women want to discover you over time, not have everything explained up front. The process of learning about someone gradually, piecing together their story, wondering about their thoughts and feelings, that process is part of what creates emotional investment and attraction. The solution is learning to be more selective and strategic about what you share and when. Give intriguing hints rather than complete explanations. Share interesting moments, but leave out mundane details. Let some of your thoughts and feelings remain unexpressed, especially early on. Create space for her to wonder about you. Be curious about you and invest effort in discovering who you are. This doesn't mean being dishonest or manipulative. It means understanding that mystery and gradual revelation are part of building attraction. You can still be authentic while being selective about what you reveal and when you reveal it. Mistake 8. Treating her like one of the guys. The eighth mistake is relating to women the same way you relate to male friends. Smart men often have primarily male friend groups, and struggle with understanding that male-female dynamics require different social calibration than male-male friendships. This shows up in several ways. You communicate with the same directness and lack of emotional nuance that works with guys. You joke around, tease, and engage in friendly competition the same way you would with male friends. You prioritize logic and problem solving over empathy and emotional support because that's what works in male friendships. The fundamental mistake here is treating gender differences as primarily physical, while missing the significant psychological and emotional differences in how men and women typically communicate and relate. What builds rapport with male friends often doesn't build romantic attraction with women. For example, the kind of teasing and competitive banter that creates bonding between men can come across as mean or dismissive with women if not calibrated properly. The logical problem-solving approach that your male friends appreciate might make women feel dismissed or unheard. The emotional restraint that's normal in male friendships can seem cold or distant in romantic contexts. The solution is developing what's often called social calibration, the ability to adjust your communication style based on context and the person you're interacting with. This doesn't mean being fake or inauthentic. It means recognizing that effective communication adapts to the audience and purpose. With women you're interested in romantically, this means being more attuned to emotional subtext, more willing to engage with feelings rather than just facts, more calibrated about teasing and banter, and more expressive of your own emotions. It means understanding that building romantic connection requires different skills than building male friendship. Mistake 9. Overthinking after the interaction. The ninth and final mistake smart men make is endless post-interaction analysis that creates anxiety and poor follow-up decisions after a date or interaction. Your analytical mind goes into overdrive, replaying every moment, analyzing every detail, trying to determine what it all meant and what you should do next. Here's the pattern. The date ends, and instead of just feeling good about it and moving forward, you spend hours or even days analyzing. She said this. What did she mean? She did that. Was it a good sign or bad sign? Should I text her now or wait? What should I say? This overanalysis creates several problems. First, it generates unnecessary anxiety as you catastrophize every potentially negative signal and obsess over things that probably meant nothing. Second, it leads to paralysis in follow-up. You overthink the perfect text message so much that you either send it too late or craft something so carefully worded it comes across as try hard. Third, it prevents you from developing natural instincts because you're always in analytical mode rather than intuitive mode. Smart men are particularly prone to this because they're used to learning through analysis and optimization. After a business meeting, analyzing what went well and what could improve is valuable. But romantic interactions aren't business meetings, and overanalysis often hurts more than it helps. The solution is setting a rule. Allow yourself a brief review after the interaction to capture key learnings. Then deliberately move on mentally. Don't replay every moment endlessly. Don't analyze every detail. Don't obsess over ambiguous signals. Take one or two key insights and then deliberately shift your focus to other things. For follow-up, keep it simple. If you want to see her again, reach out within a day or two with a clear, direct message suggesting plans. Don't overthink the perfect text. Don't analyze for hidden meanings. Just be straightforward about your intent and let the chips fall where they may. Hit that subscribe button if this video gave you insights you haven't heard before. Drop a comment telling me which mistake you're most guilty of. I want to hear from you, and share this with other smart men who might be making these same mistakes without realizing it. Remember, your intelligence is an advantage in life. Just learn to apply it strategically in dating rather than letting it sabotage your success with women. Now go implement these insights and watch your results with women transform.